Hello, everybody. It's Craig Lewis here, and this is the Running Tales podcast. So, for more than 5 years now, myself and my wife Michelle have been tracking and telling the extraordinary stories of everyday runners. We've spoken to people who've overcome everything from addiction, injury, and serious illness to complete remarkable challenges. Runners whose biggest triumph is completing a 5K to those who've won 400-mile races. No story for us is too big or too small, but they all do have one common factor: the ability to inspire. For us, running isn't about who wins. It's not about your VO2 max, whatever that actually means. It's the why behind your story and the struggles that you've gone through to achieve it. So if you do enjoy what we do, help us grow this podcast by doing that subscribe thing. Wherever you listen, click subscribe. Check out our newsletter at runningtales.substack.com. And most of all, folks, just tell your friends about it. Tell your family, your fellow runners about what we do so that we can get these incredible stories to more and more people. So this week's guest is Mark Doris, and he has basically been using running as a vehicle to raise vital funds for SANDS, the UK's leading pregnancy and baby loss charity, for more than 10 years. The charity is really, really close to Mark's heart as he runs in memory of his stillborn son, Marco, who would have been, I believe, I'll get him to confirm this in a second, I think he would have been 11 later this year. Mark's fundraising efforts have seen him raise more than £27,000 for SANDS, and along the way, he's tackled a real variety of runs, obstacle course races, up to the incredible 95-mile West Highland Way ultramarathon. And the latter event was really an epic adventure: 3 years, 2 attempts, and one knee operation in the making. Mark eventually completed it last year in 34 hours and 29 minutes, a phenomenal tribute to both his resilience and to the power of running for a cause. Next on his list is this year's London Marathon, an event he is already training hard for. So listen, folks, without further ado, let's bring Mark onto the Running Tales podcast. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, thank Craig. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, you're more than welcome. So listen, let's start off with a person who's obviously central to your whole story. And I know it's a kind of sad place to start, but tell us all about Marco and his unfortunately short story.
Yeah, so Marco is my eldest son, number one of five. I've got five boys,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, Marco was stillborn on his due date back in 2015. Just something that you never really expect to happen, but
Mm.
unfortunately is more common than we would probably all care to believe and understand. So, yeah, once we sort of came to terms with things, I realised that I wanted to do things to honour his memory and hopefully try to help other parents out there. And I decided to take on my first challenge that year, which
Yeah.
was a Bear Grylls obstacle course race in London. Um, Getting back into running was a bit of a challenge for me because in 2012 I ruptured my cruciate ligament, and I'd pretty much stopped running, stopped playing football, stopped doing everything. So even just getting around a 10k obstacle course race at that time was a physical and mental challenge. But
Yeah.
done that, raised some funds, and thought, yeah, this is something I can keep doing. Um, Donor fatigue is ultimately something that all fundraisers will experience. If you keep just running 10k races, people will just roll their eyes. What's he doing? Why is he doing the same thing again? So
Yeah.
mine was always let's go bigger and better. I attempted a couple of years later as many laps of Tough Mudder as possible, and I ran just over a marathon's worth of obstacle course laps, and then the West Highland Way came onto my radar.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds an amazing race, and we'll definitely talk about that in detail in a bit. But I just wondered if you might be able to talk people through the work that SANS do and how they've helped you, presumably, and how they help other people who are in your situation.
So SANS, much like most people, I'd never heard of them before we needed them. They do great work to point parents, bereaved parents, in the direction of help and assistance. They give the most amazing thing is a memory box, which you get in the hospital, and that gives you a matching blanket, one to go in the coffin, one to take home, matching teddy bears. They take photographs, they take handprints, etc. All the sort of precious stuff that any parent would gather over a period of time. But unfortunately, our time with Marco was very short. So
Mm.
being able to for somebody to point you in the direction and tell you to do these things during that space of time really, really helps. And I think a memory box costs about £25. So
Yeah.
when you put into what has currently been raised for SANS, I'm hoping that somewhere along the lines there's thousands of parents that have benefited from those memory boxes because of funds that we've managed to raise.
And that is £25 in the modern world where you can't get anything for less than £5, £10. That's a tiny amount for the amount of difference it can make to a parent in your situation.
Yeah, I mean that's just scraping the surface. That's something that really stuck with me because it was my first interface with SANS as a charity. But they do so much more. They bring people, they bring the community together. They fund vital research to try and prevent future pregnancy losses,
Mm.
prevent infant births and infant deaths. Sorry, and they do counselling. So there's loads and loads of different things that's available, and it's really trying to get that message out to people. So even if I don't raise as much money during an event, if I can get the word out and keep
Yeah.
SANS at the forefront of people's mind, keep people talking about my son, then that makes me a happy father.
Yeah, definitely, because it's the sort of thing that people don't like to talk about. I imagine perhaps some people have a bit of nervousness about, oh, how do I talk about to Mark about this? So I just maybe won't talk about it at all. And you probably in a way really want to talk about Marco because he's your firstborn son, as you say.
Yeah.
And this is an issue which is really, really important as well.
Yeah, there's a stigma around it. Stillbirth, somebody's lost their baby. People don't know what to say. And my
Mm.
advice to everybody and anybody is say something. The last thing that a parent wants is silence. I'm
Yeah.
when we lost Mark, I was still a dad. We were still me and my wife were still parents, and we wanted people to acknowledge that, not ignore it. And I get
Mm.
that everybody's different with how they will deal with grief, not even direct grief, but grief round about them. But put a hand on somebody's shoulder, tell them it's okay, ask them if they want to talk. That's
Yeah.
that's my advice to anybody.
Yeah. And I think I mean, thinking about it as I do, it's really obvious, but I think it's also striking the way you talk about Marco. He's my firstborn son. He's one of five sons, sort of thing. And, I don't know, that just, you don't necessarily, as someone who's not been through that, know that that's the way. I don't know if I'm making any sense of this question, but it's not necessarily an obvious way to refer to someone you've lost. But when you think about it, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not everybody can put themselves into somebody else's shoes.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people would think that empathy's that way, that you've got to understand what somebody's been through to be able to show them that level of empathy. But just let them, most bereaved parents will be able to lead you in terms of what they want, if they want to talk about it, if they
Yeah.
don't. I'm very open because obviously I love all my kids. I want that information out there for people. But
Mm.
maybe in one in every 20 people that I talked about Marco, I'll uncover somebody who needed that prompt to start talking about their own experiences.
Yeah.
Somebody who maybe isn't as forthcoming as what I've been, but they'll then realise that they can talk to me because I've got a shared experience with them.
Mm. And the thing you said at the start was it's so much more prevalent and common than people know or think about, particularly if you and I know these things are slightly different, but particularly if you expand it out to somebody to groups of people who perhaps had a miscarriage or groups of people who couldn't get pregnant in the first place, then that kind of that becomes a much wider and bigger conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, somebody gets pregnant and a baby comes at the end, and that's the fairy tale, and
Yeah.
everybody believes that that's a straightforward process. It's obviously it's the miracle of life that we as human beings are able to do, but it doesn't always go according to plan. And whether somebody's lost a baby at full term, early in infancy, or early on in the pregnancy, they're still parents at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's a really strong message. One thing I was going to ask you, and I don't know whether this is something that's affected you or not, but a friend of mine, Wayne Chalmers, we've had him previously on the podcast. He had a very similar situation to you. Has his own charity now, Team Daisy, to celebrate his daughter Daisy. And one of the things he said, which was a big issue because they're trying to get a specialist suite for it at the hospital now, was that at that time when you're going through that horrendous bereavement, um, certainly where he was here in Northampton, the room you were led into was the room full of happy parents and crying babies. And he said that was an incredibly hard thing to have to endure. And I don't know whether that was something you came across or whether the situation is different where you are.
No, I mean it was we still when we went into the hospital and we obviously knew there was a problem. We were in the maternity ward. Yeah,
Mm,
you're round about happy people. You the hospital's great, but at the end of the day, NHS is always stretched, and
sure.
people are going to be struggling for funds, and everybody would love individual specialist rooms. But at the end of the day, um, sorry, one of
So,
the kids coming in. At the end of the day, the they'll try to do the best they can to help and give you your privacy, but when we were leaving the hospital, we were walking out the same door as other parents who were leaving with a baby. We were leaving empty-handed and broken-hearted, and that's something that I would love to be able to make a big difference to, but I don't even know where I would start.
yeah, no, definitely. I think it is a real issue, and again, probably something that people don't talk about, but it's probably also a massive one to try and get resolutions to. Just thinking of something you said earlier about when you went back into running and the injuries you were coping with at the time. Um, Obviously, I understand the reason why you'd be thinking I need to make some money for SANDS and do something in Marco's memory. But why did you choose running when at that point you could barely run?
So I guess running is a mental release for everybody,
Yeah,
and the I'm a runner at heart. I was a sprinter in my younger days, and I'd fell away from it. As I say, ended up I ruptured my cruciate ligament, went through an ACL reconstruction, and went right. I'm old. I'm past it. It's time to it's time to stop letting injuries dictate my life. And when it came to once we'd lost Marco, I felt as if fresh air, exercise, it helped me, but I also felt as if it put it put a bit of a reasoning and a bit of a, as I say, try to get people to stop and think not just it's there's another person running a race or doing an obstacle course race. It was somebody's coming back after struggling to walk based on a ruptured cruciate ligament to being able to run,
yeah,
and it was always just about trying to keep people interested, I think.
yeah. And how hard was it getting back into running?
Getting into running was really difficult. We were flying down to London, I think, on the Friday, and I'd obviously been trying to train for this obstacle course race, and I went out for a bit of a shakeout run, and my knee flared up about a mile into the shakeout run, and I walked into the house. I was in tears to my wife and saying like, I'm not going to be able to do this race, and so we'll still get on the flight. We'll go down to London, and ultimately, yeah, I tried to push through that pain barrier, and I think that's now uh, that's now my superpower when it comes to events. I can sit in that pain cave, and I can keep going when I probably shouldn't.
How hard was that to adapt to as someone who, as you said, you were a sprinter when you were younger, to have to then be sort of nursing this injury and perhaps going a little bit slower must have been a bit of a change of mindset.
A bit of a change of mindset, but it's at the end of the day, a race is a race. Everybody's going out and doing their own thing.
Mm.
10k, whether it takes you an hour and a half or whether it takes you 36 minutes, it's still taking that same amount of relative effort for the individuals. And I think that sometimes gets lost. That people who are just getting into running or people that are getting older, they're still having to put in the same level of effort to get to their best effort on the day.
Yeah, do you know what, Mark? I actually think it's a little bit more than that. I think sometimes those people who are, say, at the inverted commas sort of slower end, if you like, You know, take a half marathon for one of anything else. You know, if someone can be a good club runner and get around anywhere between, I don't know, 1:15, 1:25, whatever, pretty good times. You know, of course they're going to have to train pretty hard for that. But for a beginner, say having to go around in 2.5, 3 hours, they're out there twice as long, running for twice as long. I just think some of those people who are just out there for huge long distances, there's so much to admire about the resilience they show and their ability to keep going. And oh, you know, you hear about people taking, I don't know, 6, 8 hours to do a marathon. I'm like, I don't think I could do
No,
8 hours of anything.
it's incredible. As I said, when I got back into running, one of my training runs was about maybe 3.5 miles, and I ended up with a blister. And looking
Yeah,
back now, it's like, how did I get a blister after a 3.5 mile run? But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's obviously trying to remember where you came from.
yeah, absolutely. Um, you said you took on a few of these obstacle course races. Was it purely trying to do something a little bit harder, a little bit more out there, a little bit more able to attract publicity and attention that made you sort of shift on to different events?
Yeah, I suppose it was trying to keep the interest, try to keep different people thinking, oh, that's a bit different, or that sounds challenging. And as I said, because I think there's that many hard races and really fast times, and I knew that, like, if I went and done a 10k, I was never going to be I'm never going to be a world beater, and I never would have been a world beater. But the trying to keep people interested more in what the challenge involved rather than what the end product was, or people disregarding it because it didn't seem difficult enough for them. So I thought, what is a common person going to think? Oh, that's a bit of there's a bit of something to that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So presumably you didn't jump, or maybe you did, straight from the obstacle course races to the West Highland Way.
No, so when I was training to do as many laps as possible, a Tough Mudder, one of my training runs was the Stirling Marathon. That's my only road marathon to date.
Uh,
And again, that was the type of thing where where I was trying to drum up sponsorship, letting people know that I'm doing a training race today, and it was a marathon, and that was
yeah.
I was trying to keep people. And as I was hurting, and it didn't go smoothly, but I was trying to put on the brave face and let people know that this was going on, and it was just about keeping on pushing my body and saying what am I capable of, and I suppose I probably do. I do like testing myself, and I've still got
Mm.
that bit of a, like most runners do. You've got a bit of a thought in the back of your head saying, what can I do? And if I can't go faster, can I go further? And that has been the sort of motto over the last number of years.
Mm. I don't know Sterling really well, but the little I do suggests to me that that would not have been a particularly flat marathon.
It wasn't. It was. I think I've blocked most of it out in my head,
Yeah.
but yeah, it wasn't the flattest. There was a bit where you came up a hill, and I always remember it because the roads were closed, and you got to this roundabout, and it must have been 19 miles, 20 miles in. So many people were hitting the wall. They came up that.
Yeah.
Everybody sitting at the side with the foil blankets on, where they'd had enough. But no, it was a fun course, and it was good to know that I was capable of that distance at that time.
Mm. And how much, and I think we'll probably get onto this more when we talk about the ultra as well, but how much did the reason you were running help you to get through those events and to keep going when it got tough and those hills came in and your legs were hurting and the injuries were flaring up and so on?
Yeah, I mean the earlier things, it was yeah, the reasoning behind it was enough to dig deep. But most of my races, and still to this day, I'll cross the finishing line, and through exhaustion and emotional overwhelming, as everybody does when they've achieved something. But that reason behind it, I tend to have a bit of a wobble, and
Mm.
it's okay. I'm obviously fortunate enough that, as well as obviously the reason I'm running, my other kids get to come and see me towards the finishing line. Although the Stirling Marathon, my wife decided to hand over my second born Tino to me, thinking that the finishing line was just up ahead, but it was up ahead and round the corner still a bit.
He was struggling at the end, was he? Who
Yeah,
was
so he
struggling more?
he was 11 months. He wasn't exactly slight, but I had to I had to put on a brave face and try and carry him across the line.
Oh, it must have been lovely to be able to cross the line with him though.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's fantastic. Right, talk to us about the West Highland Way ultra marathon because this sounds like quite the challenge to have even thought about taking on.
So it was actually after it was the night after we'd done as many laps of Tough Mudder as possible, and we were sitting in the restaurant in the hotel and try to. My uncle's a big advocate of what my next challenge is always. So he said, "What's next?"
Yeah,
And the West Highland Way came up in conversation, and it sort of it came up as a bit tongue in cheek. 96 miles, that's 95 miles, 96 miles. That's a lot to do. And then I just had this burning sensation in the back of my head, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna try this. Um, so there's obviously an organised race, and it's a balloted race, and you need to have running experience to be able to obviously enter and
mm,
qualify in races. So I said, well, that's not going to stop me. I'll just run it myself. So my first attempt, trained well, I was in good condition, and I decided to set off from Fort William at midnight, running solo, and yeah, ran through the night, met up with my uncle as my support crew about 26 miles in, had some food, we changed our clothes, kept going, and met people along various points, and then we got to Lochside, at Loch Lomond, and I'd met my friend and his fiance, and I rolled my ankle, but we were Lochside, and there's no way I get a car to you or anything, so you basically had to get to the next checkpoint. The next
mm.
checkpoint for me was at 71 miles, which was at Rowerdenning. So I had to hobble 3 or 4 miles on a sprained ankle. When I got there, I wanted to continue, but I didn't have another marathon in me, and that was
No.
that was about 23 and a half hours in. Um, and that was at that moment in time, that was the furthest I'd ever ran, longest I'd ever been on my feet, and I called it a day for the right reasons through an injury. It broke my heart to have to do it. Uh, my other kids were there to meet me at the finishing line, and we still drove down, got to the end of the West Highland Way, and I obviously let my kids see me at the finishing line, but I was a broken man knowing I hadn't completed it. I felt as if I'd
Mm.
let down a lot of people because I'd raised quite a lot that year, and there was a lot of expectations, but I had to just dust myself off, and I was on the waiting list for knee surgery at the time as well because I'd had a tear in my meniscus. Wasn't affecting me running, but
Mm.
it was enough that it needed done. So yeah, later that year got my knee back up to scratch, and while I was in the hospital, signed up for a couple of ultra marathons to to see myself through 2024.
Yeah. And so was the thought the sort of second you had to pull out at 70 odd miles, was it immediately like, I'm gonna have another go at this. I'm gonna have to get stopped now, but this journey's not finished.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I think in the back of my head, probably somewhere there was like it's unfinished business. I can't let it not happen.
Mm.
But obviously, the amount of training time that goes into ultra marathons, it affects family time. And
Yeah.
I keep promising my wife that the next challenge is the last one and the next one's the last one. But I do need to draw a line somewhere, I think. So I ran a couple of smaller ultra marathon races in 2024, and when the ballot came out for the West Highland Way race, I went, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I might not get in first time. I've got a qualifier race this year, but I'll throw my hat in the ring, and lo and behold, I got in. So
Yeah.
it was then right back to training, and just try to structure the training through in the right way to know that I was going to be strong enough to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I suppose when it comes to the actual day, what was I think like I've never done that far, but when the longer races you do, you never feel quite 100% prepared for them, do you?
Do you know what? I was quietly confident. My training block had went really, really well. Um, that I knew from some of the shorter races I'd done, the Highland Fling, Glasgow to Edinburgh Ultras, the John Muir Way Ultra. I did more race experience, and I knew what to expect. I knew how to get myself prepared for race day. So I felt really good, felt really confident, and the day the race started at 1 a.m. So the day before it was nervous, didn't sleep much, probably didn't fuel the way, and everything just started accumulating. And it was 18 degrees when we set off at 1 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And I ran.
We down here in England, we never think it reaches 18 in Scotland at any time, let alone 1 in the morning.
Well, my Garmin clocked my hottest temperature on the race day at
Oh, really?
31 degrees at Lochside.
Jeez, wow.
And I thought I had heat stroke. I called my wife up. I was 30 odd miles in, and I went, I'm feeling tired. My joints are aching. I don't feel like eating. Couldn't really pinpoint it. I said, I've done training runs longer than this. Like I should still be fine. My pacing was on point up to that point, and then I started falling off the wagon, and it turned out I never found out for about 6 weeks after the race. I'd actually contracted Lyme disease through a tick bite back in May. So, not making excuses, but I did complete the West Highland Way race with Lyme disease.
Oh, that's incredible.
Which was affecting me from a fatigue point of view and joints and muscle soreness. So, but it was the most surreal experience. There's a 35-hour cut-off for the West Highland Way race, and for the final 8 hours of the race, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it.
So just rewinding slightly to that, to the point where at 30 miles you're starting to feel really bad, because in some ways I'm guessing, I mean, obviously you've got the panic of hitting the deadline at the end, but at that point you're still looking ahead going, I feel spent and I've got 65 miles to go.
Yeah.
How do you get through that?
A lot of arguments with the sky along the way, shouting at everybody. Just the ultra running, the running community in general, but the ultra running community is just a different breed. Everybody you talk to is along the way. You bump into people. There's people overtaking you. People are checking you're okay, and that really helps. You've got a lot of people going through their own personal trials and tribulations during these races, and trying to grab onto somebody's coattails to drag you along a wee bit when you feel like you're walking and somebody runs up. I've got a habit of having a bag of gummy bears in my bag, and if I'm on go slow, I'll run along and I'll hold it out as soon as I hear somebody's feet approaching, and they'll grab a couple of gummy bears. You'll talk to them and then hopefully try to keep running with them. Lucky enough that my sister and my best friend, they joined me as support runners, probably about 50 odd miles in, 60 odd miles in, they joined me. So that gave me a lift.
Yeah. And so as you reach that sort of time where you were starting to think cut-offs, how does that affect your head? Because your body's probably screaming, oh, I can keep going, but maybe slower, and your head is now going, you need to keep going and you need to move a little bit quicker, please.
So I bumped into a photographer just after I left. Oh, it was a wee while after Being Glass campsite, and I smiled. And if you look back at the photo nowadays, I was happy. You wouldn't think I wasn't struggling. You see me put photographers at the top of hills, and you've got to try and smile and kid on you're still doing great. But I asked her a couple of questions, and she went, "Oh no, I'll be packing up soon. There's not many runners behind you." And I went, "What do you mean?" And she went, "A lot of people got timed out at Being Glass campsite." And I, at that moment, that was when I started realising that the cut-offs was going to become an issue. I never thought in all my race plans, my A plan, my B plan, and my C plan, the cut-off times was never a real concern of mine. So that changed things straight away. when I got just past the halfway point, met my sister, that was when things started to realise that I need to be moving. I need to be picking up a bit of pace. And I tried, but by the time nightfall came round, that's the struggle time. Going into your second bit of darkness was
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I did the Isle of Wight challenge, and we went through the night on that. I don't even know if there was a cut off. I don't think we were. Fortunately, I don't think we were particularly close to it, even though we weren't especially fast. But we basically walked the second half of that race, sort of speed march the second half of that race, and through the night. But I can't imagine what that would have been like with the pressure of thinking I need to try and go a bit faster.
Oh, my best friend Ryan, he was great when we left Glencoe, and we had to go up Devil's Staircase and stuff. That was just a power march into the dark. And when we were going down towards Kinloch leaving, I was saying to him, I says, I need to sit down. I need to shut my eyes for 2 minutes. I says, and he went, you can't sit down, you can't sit down. But it got to a point where I was power walking as well. I was probably crawling, to be honest, but I felt as if I was power walking.
Yeah.
And he just had me by the shoulder and was guiding me. My eyes were shutting. I was dead on my feet, so I was. And we hit a thunderstorm as we got into Kinloch leaving, and it was like the thunder was roaring, and then the sky just erupted. There was rain bouncing off the ground, and I think that maybe saved me because it refreshed me, it woke me up.
Yeah.
Got to the next checkpoint, felt like quitting. Spoke to the checkpoint manager. Says, do you think I can make the cut-offs? And she went, yeah, you've still got plenty of time. You've still got plenty of time. So it was out, and it was power marching for the next 12 or 13 miles.
Oh, 12 and 30 miles. I mean, it's a long distance anyway. I mean, sometimes we're a bit blasé about half marathons and so on. But for non-runners, they'll look at you as if you're mad. But to have that at the end of uh, my maths is terrible, but 70 odd miles already when you're on your last legs and you're having to power walk against a time cutoff. I just can't imagine it. I mean, you sort of mentioned it there, but what the thoughts going through your head about should I quit? Should I not? How close do you think you actually came to going, I'm not going to be able to do this?
I think as long as somebody told me that it was physically possible still to get there, then I wasn't going to just throw in the towel.
Hmm.
But I think we all do this when we're running. You sort of get your runner's math going on, and you're either massively underestimating or massively overestimating. I'm going, wait a minute, for in my head, I was like, I've got 2.5 hours to get 13 miles over rough terrain here. And in my head, I was thinking that, but I think in real terms, I had like 5 hours. But
Yeah,
my
yeah.
brain just wasn't working by that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there a point, and I guess there may not have been until the finish line, given what you've just said, but was there a point where you actually thought, do you know what? I'm okay. I'm going to do this because you came in. I've in the great scheme of 34 hours and 29 minutes. 31 minutes may sound not that much, but actually, it's still a decent margin. You didn't finish with 2 minutes to spare or anything like that.
No, I mean, like, by that point, I was lucky because obviously with I think there's 14,000 foot of elevation gain across the 95 miles. So there's hilly bits. You're going up and down quite a bit. So
Yeah,
I think towards the end, looking at my mile splits, I was probably hitting about 22 minutes per mile.
yeah,
I was done. And then my GPS is normally pretty accurate on my watch, and I'm quite happy with that. But it's a 95-mile race, but you're not accounting for all the ins and outs of the checkpoints and whether you're moving in the optimal way. So when I was at 94 miles, I'm like, right, I'm okay. 95 miles comes and goes. 96 miles comes and goes. My GPS took me to like 97.3 miles, and you're going, well, what's the difference between 95 and 97? But that was close to an hour's additional time that I wasn't really having in my head.
Yeah, these races. I mean, one, you can never 100% trust your watches, particularly over that distance. But two, these races are they're never they're never accurately measured, are they? I don't mean this
No.
disparagingly to the organisers of the West Highland Way, but I think we've all done it, and we're all like, "I've finished. I finished 10 minutes ago. Why am I still
Yeah,
running now?"
100%. I think it's that mental battle with yourself, as you say. It's just my watch might not be right, but in my head, I was banking on it being
Yeah.
millimeter perfect.
Absolutely. And just because we've got a few listeners in America and other parts of the world, and they may not 100% know, you've referred to it a bit, but explain to people what the terrain is like as you go around the West Highland Way Ultra, because it's not that friendly, is it?
It's not. I mean, there's a couple of big bits. Devil's Staircase, for example, from Kinloch,
Yeah.
from Glencoe. I love that. I love that section as an individual section, but it is a mighty climb and it is tough work. Lockside, for the elite guys that run round that, I have no idea how they manage it. Some of it, you're scrambling over rocks that are chest high, and you've got on one side you've got a lock within a metre of you, and the other side it's just vertical cliff faces and everything that you're going through. It's the most amazing place. I've walked it with some work colleagues. That was the most
Mm.
enjoyable 5 days ever because everybody was struggling. And I'm saying this is lovely at a nice
Yeah.
pace.
Yeah.
But it's the most amazing thing, and if you've ever got the chance to get out onto the West Highland Way, either the full thing or sections, I would urge anybody to do it.
Yeah, so again, I've not done it myself, but I kind of know the area, and it's the most beautiful place. So it must have been an absolutely painful but epic run and walk and crawl as you went round it. But we've spoken about that cut off. You did beat it by 31 minutes. You finished in 34 hours and 29 minutes. What was that feeling when you got round and managed to finish that journey? And obviously, I'm guessing for you that journey was not just the journey of the previous 34 odd hours, but the journey of the 10 years in the making.
Yeah, it was a lovely icing on the cake. It's something, as I says, had been on the horizon for a while, and I really wanted to do it. And as I says, I felt as if I'd let myself down, let other people down, but I'd let Marco down, and that's a tough pill to swallow. So knowing that I'd managed that, and my wife and my kids were there to support me at the finishing line, and I know everybody will say this, and I've probably looking at it through rose tinted glasses, but the finishing line at the West Highland Way is the most amazing experience ever. They have the prize giving at the end of the race at the cut off time. So
Right.
when I came into the hall, every runner, their families and supporters were all there, and the cheer and everything was just yeah, the most amazing experience, and just pure relief to be able to know that I'd got there, and it was, yeah, a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
And that is one of the amazing. We talk about it a lot, but that's one of the amazing parts of running and the running community is that support that they can provide for everybody, and to have everyone there and cheering you on as you finish. That must have been truly superb.
Yeah, really was. Really
Yeah.
was. I've put my name in the hat to go and volunteer this year to try and give something back to the race. It's
Yeah.
a fantastic community.
Hmm. I'm sure that volunteering will be fantastic, but it's not stopped you, despite your wife's wishes, perhaps, doing more challenges. And next is a pretty iconic one as well. You're obviously training for the London Marathon at the moment.
Yes, again, put my name in the hat. 1.1 million people entering for something like 80,000 ballot places.
Hmm.
And I found out the week of the West Highland Way race that I'd got a ballot place.
Yeah.
So I knew my next challenge before I'd completed the previous one. But this one's obviously, the distance doesn't scare me. I still respect the distance. So this year's about trying to, what's my body capable of in terms of speed over that distance.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this going to be one where you sort of go all out and see what time you can achieve, or are you just going to enjoy the sights and sounds of London?
I'm going all out. I don't know if I'll do many more marathons. So I've got a big stage here. I want to try and see what I'm capable of and try and not leave anything unanswered.
Yeah. Have you got a time in mind?
Yeah, I've got a very ambitious time in mind. A sub three is what
Oh
I'm
wow.
hoping for.
Wow.
I think it's maybe a bit of a reach, but I've not been one for um, aiming low with anything that I do. So I'm not going to stop now.
No, no, well, brilliant. I think it's great to have a sort of challenging target like that, and good luck to you in going for that one. And I'm presuming as well that there will be more fundraising going on as well to get some more vital funds for SANDS.
Yeah, so I've set up a Just Giving page. I've got a fantastic employer who do a fundraising match. So anything that anybody donates is doubled. So if I raise
Amazing.
£100, my employer will double that to £200 up to a maximum of 3,000. So if I raise 3,000,
Wow.
they'll do a fundraise match on that. Um, the I got a ballot place, so I'm not needing to raise any particular funds for anything else. I'm not needing to pay for anything. That's all an expense to myself. So every single penny I raise literally goes straight to the charity.
Brilliant. Oh, well, good luck with raising as much as you possibly can, because as we said earlier, it's a really, really important and fantastic cause. Also, make sure send us across the Just Giving link, and we'll put that in the show notes. So, folks, if you're listening to this now, go and check that out. It'll be in the show notes, and chuck a few pennies Mark's way to help him raise some more money for SANS, because that's really important, I think.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, obviously. And if anybody isn't able to give anything, share the story, share the link. It's about raising awareness for everybody as well as it is about raising funds.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one other thing to mention is that along the way so far, you've raised over £27,000 for SANS already. We've touched on it. We've touched on it earlier, but how important is that to the charity and to the cause that you're fundraising for?
These charities rely on these donations. If the donations aren't coming in, they can't provide the help that I found so useful, and I know that goes out to other parents. They do so much good work. They've got weekly talks at local places. They host different events. They've got even SANS United Football Club, and these are things that I wasn't even aware of, and I've just over the last couple of years I've started trying to get involved with more of the SANS community things that they do
Mm.
to try and help and spread awareness, because ultimately not everybody's going to be able to go out and run and raise funds, but the guys at the local SANS United every Monday night they get together at 8 o'clock, and it's not a overly competitive kickabout, but it's there, and it's a chance for dads to get together and have a shared experience.
Yeah, and how much has it helped? How much does it help you to be able to give back to SANS in this way?
I think it's gave me focus on things.
Mm.
When when you go through that, you can feel quite lost, and to have a focus that revolves around your son. That's been vital for me,
Mm.
because you can keep yourself busy with a million and one different things, but to have something that's focused around about Marco and his memory, that's been great. Last year I hosted a 5K race in his memory, and I'm hoping to be making that an annual thing that will be able just to be hosted, where it's again just either runners to come together because the community is so great, but also a chance for parents and bereaved parents to come together and have somewhere that they can go, whether that's a run or a walk.
Mm. No, that's lovely. That's a fantastic event to be able to hold and so on. And just finally, Mark, in terms of, I suppose, running itself, something you probably thought at one point you weren't gonna be able to do. How much do you feel that running has given you and helped you along the way in this journey?
It's helped me massively. This is it's given me a focus, and it's helped me show some bad habits, but mostly good habits to my kids. My kids all get involved in the running. They go to the junior park run at the weekends, and yeah, it's just something that I think can bring us together. And running's a real good release. You never feel bad after a run. You might feel sore, but you never feel bad. It's a good way to clear your head and be alone with your own thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of asked this question to a lot of people, but what would you say to people who were perhaps in the situation you were in, or in dealing with other kinds of loss, or whatever bad things might be happening in their life as far as running goes? What would you sort of say to people about running, I suppose?
Running's great, but get out, get the fresh air, get the exercise. As I says, it helps release some good endorphins within your body. It can give you that moment of clarity, or when you're out running, your legs are burning, your lungs are hurting. You don't think about anything else other than that, and it can give you that sort of moment of serenity where everything can seem normal. So I would encourage people, get out running. Running can give you back as much as you put into it.
Lovely. Oh, well, Mark, I think that's an amazing place to finish. Thank you so much for your time. Well done on everything you've done for SANDS. As I said, it's an amazing charity, folks. That link will be in the show notes, so please do go and check it out, and help Mark to make some more money for SANDS, because it's so important. And good luck at London with that target. I'm sure you'll absolutely smash it. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on Running Tales.
No, thanks for having me, Craig. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody for joining Mark and I to talk a bit about running today on the podcast. If you did enjoy today's conversation, please give us a like, please subscribe, please go and check out our Substack at runningtales.substack.com, and have a look at everything we do there. Lots of written stories on there as well from the world of running, and some people who've done some truly amazing things. Please tell everybody about the podcast. It does help us to grow it. I'd love to grow by word of mouth rather than by some social media algorithm. So yeah, tell everyone you know about the Running Tales podcast. And most of all, come and join us in another week where we will have another episode of the Running Tales podcast.